people to be open to the world. We want people to be curious. We want people to understand it's not always about you. It's okay if your ego is out of it. I don't have to have this attitude. I have a choice. I can make difference. And suddenly I can look at the same facts and come to a very different conclusion. When you lose a sense of self, when you see I'm just one among many individuals or many conscious beings, you develop empathy, you develop positive feelings for other creatures that may have different goals than you, that look at the world in different ways, but we're all engaged in the same voyage, bookended between two eternity.
That was good. I like that guy. Quite like that guy, you know what I mean?
We're all staring at a giant leaderboard with social media where we can see how other people are progressing, their success, where we keep on comparing ourselves to each other, asking, is this person being faster? Is this person working harder? Is this person being more successful? This creates toxic productivity when we overwork ourselves just trying to climb those ladders as quickly as possible. We feel like if we manage to be successful, then we'll be happy. Because of that, we try to build systems, we try to stick to routines, and we try to go through very long lists of tasks, often ignoring our mental health in the process. But when you ask happy people how they discovered their passion, and if they give you an honest answer, they'll tell you they stumbled upon it. What we can learn from that is that finding your purpose in life is not really about seeking it, obsessing over it, or applying a plan, but instead it's about following your curiosity, experimenting, exploring, trying new things, and trusting that you will figure out what is the thing that makes you excited to wake up in the morning. I'm Anne-Laure Le Canf. I'm a neuroscientist and the author of Tiny Experiments: How to Live Freely in a Goal-Obsessed World. A lot of us are currently experiencing cognitive overload, and there are many reasons for that. The world is changing fast, and we're trying to hoard as much information as possible to understand what's going on around us. We're trying to be as productive as possible in order to keep up, again, with this world that keeps on changing. In essence, there is a lot more to think about on a daily basis, but our brains haven't evolved. They're still the same that they were thousands of years ago. This creates anxiety because we keep asking ourselves, how am I doing? Am I doing better? Am I being fast enough? Am I being productive enough? Am I being ambitious enough? Tiny Experiments offer an alternative to this maximalist approach, where instead of going for the bigger thing, you go for the thing that is most likely to bring you discovery, fun, enjoyment, and that is based on your curiosity rather than an external definition of success. A linear model of success is based on a fixed outcome that we try to get to. It implies that first you do A, then B, then C, and then you'll be successful. There are lots of problems with a linear model of success. One of them is that it assumes that you know where you're going, which might not always be the case. Another one is the assumption that wherever you want to go right now is where you will want to go in a few years from now. Things are changing very fast. Our world is evolving, and you should allow yourself to change the direction of your ambitions with the world as the world changes. There's a famous quote that has been attributed to a lot of different psychologists, including Viktor Frankl, and that says that our freedom lies within the gap between stimulus and response. What that means is that whenever we find ourselves in a situation or whenever we face a trigger, there is a little gap between that trigger and our response. And in that gap lies the freedom to make a choice. Are we going to go for the automatic response, the one we have no control over? Or are we going to pause and ask ourselves, how do I want to respond to this situation? Whenever we face a disruption in our life, it's very tempting to try and immediately solve the actual problems that arise from that disruption. We completely ignore the emotional experience. Affective labeling means labeling your emotions. It really just means putting words to feelings. And it's incredibly helpful because it allows you to better connect and understand your emotions so you can manage them better.
Okay.
But every so often it's good to like step back and realize that like actually things have just like come so far. it's incredible how used we get to things improving all the time and how they just become like a daily driver and you just use it every day. And then you reflect back to like a month ago, this wasn't even possible. And this just continues to happen. I think that's quite fascinating, like how quickly humans adapt to new things.
Now, one of the struggles that we've always had is the question of whether to go deep on a domain, right? Because we're really here for the G, right? For AGI, general intelligence. And so to first order, our instinct is just push on making all the capabilities better at once. Coding's always been the exception to that, right? We really have a very different program that we use to focus on coding data, on code metrics, on trying to really understand how do our models perform on code. And that, you know, we've started to do that in other domains too, but for programming and coding, that's been like a very exceptional focus for us. And, you know, for GPT-4, we really produced a single model that was just a leap on all fronts. But we actually had trained, you know, the Codex model. And I remember doing like a Python sort of focused model. Like we were really trying to push the level of coding capability back in, 2021 or so. And, I remember when we did the Codex demo, that was maybe the first demonstration of what we'd call vibe coding today, right? And I remember building this interface and having this realization that for just standard language model stuff, the interface, the harness is so simple, right? You're just completing a thing and maybe there's a follow-up turn or something like that, but that's it. For coding, that you actually, this text comes to life, right? You need to execute it, that it needs to be hooked up to tools, all these things. And so you realize that the harness is almost like equally part of how you make this model usable as the intelligence. And so that is something that I think we kind of knew from that moment. And it's been interesting to see as we got to more capable models this year and really started to focus on not just making the raw capability, like how do you win at programming competitions, but how do you make it useful, right? Training in a diversity of environments, really connecting to how people are going to use it, and then really building the harness, which is something that Thibaut and his team have like really pushed hard.
Could you unpack like a harness, what that means in sort of simple terms?
Yes, it's quite simple. You have the model, and the model is just capable of input-output. And what we call the harness is how do we integrate that with the rest of the infrastructure so that the model can actually act on its environment. So it's the set of tools, it's the way that it's looping. So the agent loop, as we refer to it as the agent loop. And it's in essence, it's fairly simple. But when you start to integrate these pieces together and really train it end to end, you start to see like pretty magical behavior and an ability of the model to really act and create things on your behalf and be a true collaborator. So think about it a little bit as, the harness being your body and the model being your brain.
Okay. It's interesting to see how far it came, like GPT-3 days where you literally had to write commented code and say like this function does this with its Python, put your hashtag in front of that, whatever. And it's just interesting to see how the models have now become just naturally intuitively good at coding. And you mentioned that, trying to determine between a general purpose model or saying how important code is. Was it just outside demand, people telling you wanted these models to better at code, or was this coming internally because you guys wanted to use this more?
Like both.
Yeah.
Absolutely both. And I remember, in I think 2022 is when we worked with GitHub to produce GitHub Copilot. And the thing that was very interesting there was that for the first time, you really felt, what is it like to have an AI in the middle of your coding workflow and how can it accelerate you? And I remember that there were a lot of questions around the exact right interface. Do you want ghost text so it just does a completion? Do you want a little drop down with a bunch of different possibilities? But one thing that was very clear was latency was a product feature. And the constraint for something like an autocomplete is that 1500 milliseconds, right? That's like the time that you have to produce a completion. Anything that's slower than that, it could be incredibly brilliant. No one wants to sit around waiting for it. And so the mandate that we had, the clear signal we had from users and from the product managers and all the people thinking about the product side of it is get the smartest model you can, subject to the latency constraint. And then you have something like GPT-4, which much smarter, but it's not going to hit your latency budget. What do? Is it a useless model? Like, absolutely not. The thing you have to do is you change the harness, you change the interface. And I think that that's like a really important theme is you need to kind of co-evolve the interfaces and the way that you use the model around its affordances. And so super fast, smart models is going to be great, but the incredibly smart but slower models, it's also worth it. And I think that we've always had a thesis that the that the returns on that intelligence are worth it. And it's never obvious in the moment because you're just like, well, it's just going to be too slow. Why would anyone want to use it? But I think that our approach has very much been to say, just bet that the greater intelligence will pan out in the long run.
It was hard for me to wrap my head around where that was all headed back when working on the GitHub Copilot, because at that point we're used to, like you said, the completion. Ask it to do a thing, it completes a thing. And I think I didn't really understand how much more value you would get out of building a harness, adding all these capabilities there. And it just seemed like all you just need is the model. But now you realize the tooling, everything else matters, can make such a big difference. And you brought up the idea of modalities. And now we have CLI, Codex CLI, so I can go in the command line, I can do this. There's a plugin for VS Code, so I can go use this there. And then also I can deploy stuff to the web and do that. And I don't think I fully kind of comprehend the value of that. And so, like, how is this something you're using? How are you kind of deploying these things yourself? Like, where are you finding the most, utility out of it?
I think just to go back a little bit on like the first signs that we saw is like we had a lot of developers at the company, outside of the company, like our users use ChatGPT to help them debug like very complex problems. And one thing that we clearly saw is like people are trying to get more and more context into ChatGPT, and you're trying to get bits of your code and stack traces and things, and then you paste that and you present that to a very smart model to get some help. And interactions were starting to get more and more complex, up to some point where we realized like, hey, maybe instead of the user driving this thing, maybe let the model actually drive the interaction and find its own context and then find its way and be able to debug, this hard problem by itself, so that you can just sit back and, watch the model do the work. So it's like sort of like reversing that interaction that, led to this, I think, thinking a lot more about the harness and giving the model the ability to act.
And we iterated on form factors, right? I remember at the beginning of the year, we had a couple of different approaches. We had, sort of the async agentic harness, but we also had the local experience and a couple of different implementations of it. And
we actually started to play a little bit with this idea of like running it in the terminal. And then we felt that was not AGI pilled enough. We needed the ability to run this at scale and remotely and just close the laptop and have, the agent to just like continue to do its work. And then you can maybe follow it on your phone and interact with it there. That seemed like very cool. So we pushed on that. But we actually had a prototype of it fully working in a terminal. And people were using that productively at OpenAI. We decided to not launch this as a product. It didn't feel like polished enough. It was called 10x because we felt like it was giving us this 10x productivity boost. But then we decided to just experiment with different form factors and like really go all in with the async form factor initially. And now we've kind of gone back a little bit of that and re-evolved and said like, hey, actually, just experiment with different form factors and like really go all in with the async form factor initially. And now we've kind of gone back a little bit of that and re-evolved and said like, hey, actually this agent, we can bring it back to your terminal, we can bring it in your IDE. But the thing that we're really trying to get right is like this entity, this collaborator that's working with you, and then bringing that to you in the tools that you're already using as a developer.
Yeah. And there were other shots on goal as well, right? So we had a version where there was a remote daemon that would connect to a local agent. And so you kind of could get both at once. And I think that part of the evolution has been that there's almost this matrix of different ways you could try to deploy a tool, right? There's this like async, it has its own computer off in the cloud. There's the local that it's running synchronously there. You can blend between these. That there's a question of, there's been a question for us of how much do we focus on trying to build something that is externalizable, right? That is like useful in the diversity of environments that people have out there versus really focus on our own environment and try to make it so that things work really well for our internal engineers. And one of the challenges has been we want to kind of do all of this, right? We ultimately want tools that are useful to everyone. But if you can't even make it useful for yourself, how are you going to make it extremely useful for everyone else? And so part of the challenge for us has been really figuring out where do we focus and like how do we achieve the sort of biggest bang for the buck in terms of our engineering efforts. And, for me, one of the things that's been an overarching focus has been we know that coding and building very capable agents is one of the most important things that we can do this year. At the beginning of the year, we set a company goal of an agentic software engineer by the end of the year. And figuring out exactly what that means and how to instantiate that and how to bring together all the opportunity and all the kind of compute that we have to bear on this problem, like that has been a great undertaking for many, many people at OpenAI.
So you mentioned that you had the tool 10x, and that was an internal tool, and that seemed to be something at some point you said, oh, this is really useful to other people. It's got to be hard to decide when to do that and when not to, and how much to sort of prioritize that. You know, we've seen Claude Code has become extremely powerful, which I imagine is probably a similar story with something that was used internally and then became something deployed. When you start to think about next steps of, you know, where do you decide to take it next? Where do you decide to put the emphasis? You know, you mentioned before, you know, I can now run things in the cloud, run these web, you know, do these kind of agentic like tasks where I walk away. And my problem is just, it's such a new modality. It's really, really hard for me to think about. But sometimes these things have to sit around for a while and people sort of discover them independently. And have you found that internally, that somebody says, oh, now I get it?
I say absolutely, right? And I think that, you know, my perspective is that we kind of know the shape of the future, right, of the long term. It is very clear that you're going to want an AI that has its own computer, that is able to just run, you know, delegate to a fleet of agents and be able to solve multiple tasks in parallel. You should wake up in the morning, you're sipping your coffee, you know, answering questions for your agent, like providing some review, being like, oh, no, this wasn't quite what I meant. This workflow clearly needs to happen. But the models aren't quite smart enough for this to be the way that you interact with them. And so having an agent that is really there in your terminal, in your editor, to help you with the way that you do your work that looks very similar to the way you would have done it a year ago, that's also the present. And so I think that the way that we've seen it is almost we're blurring together, here's what the future looks like, but we also can't abandon the present, and thinking about how do you bring AI into code review and how do you make it so that it appears proactively and does work for you that's useful. And then you have a whole new challenge as well of, if you have a lot more PRs, like how do you actually sort through those to the ones that are the ones you actually want to merge? And so I think we've kind of seen all of this opportunity space, and we've seen people start to change how they develop within OpenAI, how they even structure their code bases.
Yeah, I think there are two things to that effect that really combine and mean, you know, this is where we're at today. Is one, infrastructure is hard, and we would love for, you know, all of everyone's code and like tests and packages to be like perfectly containerizable, and so we can run them at scale. But that's not the case. Like people have very thorough and complex setups that probably only runs on their laptop, and we want to be able to leverage that and meet, you know, people where they are, so that, you know, they don't have to configure things specifically for Codex. That gives you this very easy entry point into experiencing, you know, what a very powerful coding agent can do for you. And it's also at the same time lets us experiment with, you know, what the right interface is. 6 months ago, we weren't playing with these kinds of tools, and this is all very new and evolving fast. And we have to continue to iterate here and innovate on like what the right interface and what the right way to collaborate with these agents are. And we don't feel like we have really nailed that yet. That's going to continue to evolve, but bringing it to like a zero setup, extremely easy to use out of the box, you know, allows a lot more people to benefit from it and like play with it, and for us to get the feedback so that we can continue to innovate. That's very important.
I remember at the beginning of the year talking to one of our engineers who I think is really fantastic. And he was saying that ChatGPT, we had this integration where it could automatically see the context in his terminal. And he's like, it's transformative because he doesn't have to like copy paste errors. He just like can instantly be like, hey, like, you know, what's the bug? And it would just tell him, and it was great, right? And you realize that it was an integration that we built that was so transformative. It wasn't about a smarter model. And I think that one thing that's very easy to get confused by is to really focus on only one of these dimensions and be like, which one matters? Because the answer is they kind of both matter. And the way I've always thought about this, I remember when we were originally releasing the API back in 2020, is there's two dimensions to what makes an AI desirable. There's intelligence, which you can think of as one axis, and then there's convenience, which you can think of as latency. You could think of as cost. You could think of as the integrations available to it. And there's some acceptance region, right, where it's like if the model's incredibly smart, but it takes you like a month to run it or something, like you still might, right? If what's going to output is such a valuable piece of code, or, you know, cure for a certain disease or something like that, okay, fine, like it's worthwhile. If the model's incredibly not that intelligent, not that capable, then all you want to do is autocomplete. So it has to be incredibly convenient, zero cognitive tax for you to think about what it's suggesting, that kind of thing. And where we are is, of course, somewhere on the spectrum now. We now have smarter models that are, you know, reasonably less convenient than autocomplete, but still like more convenient than you have to sit around and wait for a month for the answer to appear. And so I think that a lot of our challenge is figuring out, when do you invest in pulling that convenience to the left? When do you invest in pushing the intelligence up? And it's a massive design space, which is what makes it fun.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember, but I made an app that was featured on the launch back in 2020, AI Channels. And the challenge was GPT-3 was very capable, but I had to write these like 600 word prompts to get it to do stuff. And because it's 6 cents per 1,000 tokens and the latency, I'm like, I don't think this is the world for this right now.
Yes.
And then GPT 3.5 and GPT 4, and then all of a sudden you see all that capabilities. And it was hard for me to say why, but then you see that all of a sudden the things that come together. And you mentioned, the idea of just having, the model be able to see the context inside of the, where you're working. And I remember when I was copy pasting using ChatGPT into my workspace, and it reminded me going into a grocery store and refusing to get a cart and just carrying everything to the checkout. I'm like, this is terribly inefficient. Once you put things on wheels, it works really well. And I think we're seeing all kinds of those unlocks now. Now the problem I deal with is when I sit down to work on something is, do I go into CLI? Do I go use the VS Code plugin? Do I go into Cursor? Do I use some other tool? And how do you guys figure this out?
Right now, we're still at the experimentation phase where we're trying different ways for you to interact with the agent and bring it where you're already productive. So for example, Codex is now in GitHub. You can mention Codex and it will do work for you. If you do add Codex, fix this bug, or move the tests over here, it'll go and like run off and like do it, with its own little laptop, on our data centers, and you don't have to think about it. But if you're working with files in a folder, then you have that decision that, are you going to do it in your IDE? Are you going to do it in terminal? What we're seeing is users are developing, like power users are developing very complex workflows with the terminal more. And then when you're actually working on a file or a project, you prefer to do it in the IDE. It's a bit more of a polished interface. You can undo things. You can see the edits. It's not like just scrolling by you. And then the terminal is just an amazing also vibe coding tool where, if you don't really care that much about the code that's being produced, you can just generate a little app. It's much more about that interaction. It elevates the interaction more instead of focusing on the code. So it's more focused on the outcome. And it just sort of like depends on what you want to do, but it's still very much an experimentation phase right now. And we're trying different things out. And it's going to continue like that, I think.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And I also think that a lot of our direction will be more integration across these things, right? Because people are capable of using multiple tools, right? You already have your terminal, your browser, your GitHub web interface, your repo on your local machine. Each of these is something people have kind of learned when it's appropriate to reach for what tool. And I think that because we're in this experimentation phase, that these things can feel very disparate and very different. And you have to kind of learn a new set of, skills and the affordances of the relevant tool. And I think that a lot of, as we're iterating, what's on us is to really think about how do these fit together. And so you can start to see it, right, with the Codex IDE extension being able to run remote Codex tasks. And I think that ultimately our vision is that there should be a AI that has access to its own computer, its own clusters, but is also able to look over your shoulder, right? They can also come and help you locally. And these shouldn't be distinct things.
Right. And it's like this one coding entity that is there to help you and collaborate with you. Like when I collaborate with Greg, I don't complain that sometimes you're in Slack. Sometimes I talk to you in person.
Sometimes you complain.
Sometimes we interact like through a GitHub like review. Like this seems like very natural when you interact with other humans and collaborators. And this is also where, how we're thinking about Codex as an agentic like entity that is really meant to just supercharge you when you're trying to achieve things.
So let's talk about some of the ways of using it, like agents.md. Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, agents.md is a set of instructions that you can give to Codex that lives alongside your code so that Codex has a little bit more context about how to best navigate the code and accomplish the tasks. There are two main things that are useful to put in agents.md that we find is like helping with, it's like a compression thing where it is a little bit more efficient for the agent to just read codex.md instead of like exploring the entire code base. And then preferences that are actually not clear in the code base itself, where you would be like, actually tests should be over here, or, I like things to be done in this particular fashion. And those two things, preferences and then explaining to the agent how to navigate the code base effectively are very useful things to have in agents.md.
Yep. And I think that there's something
A little bit more efficient for the agent to just read codex.md instead of like exploring the entire code base. And then preferences that are actually not clear in the code base itself, where you would be like, actually tests should be over here, or, I like things to be done in this particular
guy who's fake around tame. I told him I like his bass on it as speaker, it's a shame. Bass with a cup, not a rhythm name. Then he asked what music I make, it's a mix of you and I. Bass with a cup, not a rhythm name. Then he asked what music. Then he was made, then he not a rhythm name. Then he asked bass with a cup, not a rhythm name. Then he asked what music I make. He asked what music I make, it's a mix of you and Animal Con. Then he asked what music I make, it's a mix of not a rhythm name. Then he asked what music I make, it's a mix of you and Animal Connected with what I had to say, the same thing. And he asked my all what I had to say, the same. What I had to say, the same thing. And he knows my all his baby, now maybe I'm insane. Connect. Animal connected with what I had to say, the same thing. Like my mind, all the guy who's fake around tame. I told him I like his bass on it as speaker, it's a shame. Bass with a cup, not a rhythm name. Bass with a cup, not a rhythm name. Bass with a cup, not a rhythm. Bass with a cup, not a rhythm. Bass with a cup, not a rhythm name. Then he asked what. It's a shame. Bass with a cup, not a rhythm name. Then he asked what music I make, it's a mix of you. Bass with a cup, not a rhythm name. Then he asked what music I make, it's a mix of you and Animal Con. It's a mix of you and a mix of you and it's a. I make it's a mix of you and Animal Connected with what I had to say, the same thing. I make it's a mix of you and Animal Connected with what I had to say, the same thing. I make it's a mix of you and Animal Connected with what I had to say, the same. I make. no reasons made. Daddy, I start to think I make it a bit of you and animal collective is what I had to say the same thing. Maybe not my own behavior, now maybe I am insane. My music without me, I start to think I make it a bit of you and it's a bit of you and you and I make it a bit of you. I make it a bit of you. I make start to think I make it a bit of you and I know it's a bit of you and animal collective. You think I make it a bit of you and animal collective. You and a bit of you and animal collective. Of you and a bit of you and it's a bit of you, a bit of you and animal collective. Of you and bit of you and a you and a bit of you and Daddy, I start to think I make it a bit of you and animal collective. Bit of you and made. Daddy, I start to think I make it a bit of you and animal collective. It's without God, no reasons made. Daddy, I start to think I make it a bit of you and animal collective. I make it a bit of you and animal. I make it a bit of you and animal. It's a bit of you and animal collective is what I had to say the same thing. Maybe not my own behavior, now maybe I am insane. The guy who's fake around tame, I still say my like is based on it. A speaker, it's a shame. Face without God, no reasons made. Daddy, I start to think I make it a bit of you and animal collective is what I you and animal collective is what I had to say the same thing. Maybe not my own behavior, think I make it a bit of you and animal. But I had to say the same thing. Maybe not my own behavior, now maybe I am. Look up, no reasons made. Daddy, I start to think I make it a bit of you and animal collective is what I had to say the same thing. Maybe not my own behavior, now maybe I am insane. Take around tame, I still say my like is based on it. A speaker, it's a shame. Face without God, no reasons made. Daddy, I start to think I make it a bit of you and animal collective is what I had to say the same thing. Maybe not my own behavior, now maybe not my own, maybe not, maybe not my own behavior, not my own behavior, now not my own. Maybe not my own behavior, now maybe I. Maybe not my. Maybe not my own. Maybe not my own. Maybe not my own behavior. Maybe not my own. Maybe not my own. Maybe not my own behavior. Maybe not my own. Maybe not my own behavior. Now maybe I am insane. Maybe not my own behavior. Now maybe I am insane. Maybe not my own. Maybe not my own behavior. Now maybe not my own behavior. Maybe not my own behavior. Now maybe I am insane. I am insane. I'm insane. I'm insane. Insane. when I'm insane. My music without sounding fake. My music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. All I did is what I had to say. The same thing. And you know my own delivery without maybe when I'm insane. My music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the music without sounding fake. Music without sounding. Music without sounding fake. Don't wait for music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. Music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the music without sounding fake. Music without sounding fake. Don't wait for music without sounding fake. Don't wait. Music without sounding fake. Music without sounding fake. Music without sounding fake. Music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. Music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. My music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. My music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. My music without sounding fake. Don't wait for without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. My music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the without sounding fake. Without sounding music without sounding fake. The music without sounding fake. Don't wait music without sounding fake. Music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the don't wait for the reply. Don't wait for the reply. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. Without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. Don't wait for the reply. Music without sounding fake. Don't wait for fake. Don't wait music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. Don't wait for don't wait. Don't wait fake. Don't wait for the reply. Fake. Don't wait for the without sounding fake. Don't wait fake. Don't wait for the fake. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. Fake. Don't wait for the reply. Fake. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. Don't you sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. My music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. Type the take name, sorry Kevin Conlon bank, but it no rank, sounds like this of a rain, this was the thing I was telling me, and it is insane. My music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. My music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. Sure. Type the take name, sorry Kevin Conlon bank, but it no rank, sounds like this of a my music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. My music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. My music without sounding fake. Don't Kevin Conley, but it that not haunted my friend. I make my music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply, yeah, sure. Fake, don't wait for the reply, yeah, sure. For the reply, yeah, sure. Reply, yeah, sure. Time to take, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Wait for the reply, yeah, sure. Wait for the reply, yeah, sure. Sure. Yeah, sure. 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 Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Now, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Wait for the reply, yeah, sure. The reply, yeah, sure. Time to take names, sorry Kevin Conley, but it no rain. For the reply, yeah, sure. Wait for the reply, yeah, sure. Time to take, yeah, sure. Sounding fake, don't wait for the reply, yeah, sure. Yeah. Sounding fake, don't wait for the reply, yeah, sure. Yeah. Speak without sounding fake, don't wait for the reply, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Wait for the reply, yeah, sure. Time to take names, sorry Kevin Conley, good enough. Time to take names, sorry Kevin Conley, good enough. Rain sounds like a submarine, is the thing I was telling me, making it insane. Isn't it discovery? The exact point of music. Cause not I got respect, cause not I got respect. Feelings in my head, and I take them to my one-man trip. Walk with others as my music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply, yeah, sure. Sure, yeah, sure. Don't wait for the reply, yeah, sure. The reply, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Don't wait for the reply, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. The reply, yeah, sure. The reply, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Time to take names. Yeah, sure. For the reply, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Time to take names, sorry Kevin Conley. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Music without sounding fake, don't wait for the reply, yeah, sure. Time to take, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Time to take names, sorry Kevin Conley, good enough. Rain sounds like a submarine, is the time to take names, sorry Kevin Conley, good enough. Rain sounds like a submarine. Time to take names, sorry Kevin Conley, good enough. Rain sounds like Kevin Conley. Time to take names, sorry Kevin. Take names. Take names, sorry Kevin Conley. Time to take names, sorry Kevin Conley, good enough. Rain sounds like a submarine, is the thing I was telling me, making it insane. Isn't it discovery? Isn't it discovery? The said. Is a new discovery. Is a said. Is a said. Is a new discovery. Is a new discovery. Is a new discovery. Said. Is a new discovery. The exact point of music. That's not I got respect. That's not I got respect. It's in my head and I think the thing I was telling me and it said. Is a new discovery. The said. Is said. Is a new discovery. The exact point of music. That's not I got respect. That's not I got respect. It's in my head and I think is a new discovery. The exact point of the exact new discovery is a new discovery. The exact point of music. That's not I got respect. That's not I got respect. The exact point of music. That's not exact point of music. Exact point of music. That's exact point of music. That's not I got respect. That's not I got respect. The exact point of music. That's not I got respect. Discovery. The exact point of music. That's not point of music. That's music. That's music. That's exact point of music. That's music. That's not music. That's not I got respect. Music. That's point of music. That's not I got respect. Point of music. That's not music. That's not point of music. That's not I got music. That's music. That's not I got respect. Music. That's not I got music. That's not I got respect. Exact point of music. That's not I got exact point of music. That's not I got respect. That's not I got respect. It's in my head and I take her to my one bed crib. Walk with dollars at my rib. Is a new discovery. The exact point of music. That's not I got respect. That's not I got respect. It's in my head and I take her to my one bed crib. Walk with dollars at my rib. Is a new discovery. The exact point of music. That's not I got respect. That's not I got respect. It's in my head and I take her to my sound and fake. Don't wait for the reply. Yeah, sure. Slice the take lane. Sorry, Kevin, call home bank, but it no brain. Sounds like a submarine. It's the thing I was telling me, making it insane. Is a new sound and fake. Don't wait for the reply. Yeah, sure. Slice the take lane. Sorry, Kevin, call home bank, but it no brain. Sounds like a submarine. It's the thing I was telling him, imagine it stayed. Sounding fake, don't wait for the reply. Yeah, sure. Slice the take lane. Sorry, Kevin, call home bank, but it no brain. Sounds like a submarine. It's the thing I was telling him, imagine it stayed. Is a new discovery. The exact point of music. That's not I got respect. That's not I got respect. It's in my head and I take her to my one bed crib. Awkward silence at my rib. Sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. Yeah, sure. Type the take name, sorry Kevin call me, but it no brain, sounds like this submarine is the thing I was telling me, making it insane. Isn't it discovery the exact point of music? Cause not I got respect, cause not I got respect. Beats in my head and I take her to my one bed crib. Walk with dollars at my rib. Sounding fake, don't wait for the reply, I'm sure. Type the take name, sorry Kevin call me, but it no brain, sounds like this submarine is the thing I was telling me, making it insane. Isn't it discovery the exact point of music? Cause not I got respect, cause not I got respect. Beats in my head and I take her to my one bed crib. Walk with dollars at my rib. And I take her to my one bed crib. Walk with dollars at my rib. And I take her to my one bed crib. Walk with dollars at my rib. Point of music, got some notes, I got respect, got some notes, I got respect. Beats in my head and I take her to my one bed crib. Walk with dollars at my rib. Type the take name, sorry Kevin call me, but it no brain, sounds like this got some notes, I got respect. Beats in my head and I take her to my one bed crib. Walk with dollars at my rib. See, know what I mean? Look to the sky, look inside and now. So big, I thought I'd get the dig. I'm freaking out, but I'm sick, but I'm and myself a big around thing. I still say my like is based on it. A speaker, it's a shame. Bass with a cut, no rhythm's main. That he also music I make it's a rhythm's main. That he also no rhythm's main. That he also no rhythm's main. That he also no rhythm's main. That he also music I make it's a mix of you. I got no rhythm's main. That he also music main. That he also music main. Bass with a cut, no rhythm's main. That he also music I make it's a mix of you and animal connected with what I had to say, the same thing. And he knows my audience, baby, now maybe I'm insane. And he knows my audience, baby, now maybe I'm insane. My audience, baby, knows my audience, baby, now maybe and he knows my audience, baby, now maybe I'm insane. I'm insane. I'm insane. Insane. My music without sounding fake. My music without sounding my music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply, I'm sure. Don't wait for the reply, don't wait for the reply, I'm sure. Don't wait for the reply, I'm sure. I'm sure. Don't wait for the reply, I'm sure. I'm sure. Don't wait for the reply, I'm sure. Don't wait for the reply, I'm sure. I'm sure. For the reply, I'm sure. I'm sure. Wait for the reply, I'm sure. I'm sure. Wait for the reply, I'm sure. Type the take name for the reply, I'm sure. Lane, Tori, Kevin, Carl, Bang, but it no brain, sounds like this. The rain is the thing I was telling him, making it insane. Isn't it discovery? The exact point of music. Cause not I got respect. Cause not I got respect. Hands in my head and I take them to my one-man trip. Walk with dollars at my rib. Bang, but it no brain, sounds like this. The rain is the thing I was telling him, making it insane. Isn't it discovery? The exact point of music. Cause not isn't it discovery? The exact point of music. Cause not I got respect. Cause not I got respect. Cause I got respect. Cause not I got respect. Cause not respect. Cause not I got respect. Respect. Cause not I got respect. Cause not I got respect. Cause not I got respect. Hands in my head. Respect. Cause not I got respect. Cause not I got respect. Hands in my head and I told music. Cause not I got respect. Cause not I got respect. Hands in my head and I take them to my one-man trip. Walk with dollars at my rib. Making it insane. Isn't it discovery? The exact point of music. Cause not I got respect. Cause not I got cause point of music. Cause not I got respect. Cause not I got respect. Hands in my head and I take them to Lane, Tori, Kevin, Carl, Bang, but it no brain, sounds like this. The rain is the thing I was telling him, making it insane. Lane, Tori, Kevin, Carl, Bang, but it no brain, sounds like this. The rain is the thing I was telling him, making it insane. Isn't it discovery? The exact point of music. Cause not I got respect. Cause not I got respect. Hands in my head and I take them to my one-man trip. Walk with dollars at my rib. Even the dope is really good and I can see. My music without sounding fake. Don't wait for the reply. Yeah, sure. Side to take Lane, Tori, Kevin, Carl, Bang, but it no brain, sounds like this. The rain is the thing I was telling him, making it insane. Isn't it discovery? The exact point of music. Cause not I got respect. Cause not I got respect. Hands in my head and I take them to my one-man trip. Walk with point of music. Cause not I got respect. Cause not I got respect. Hands in my head. Hands in my head. Cause not I got respect. Hands in my respect. Hands in respect. Hands in my head and I got respect. Hands in my head and I take them to my one respect. Hands in my head and I got respect. Hands in my head and I take hands in my head and I take them to my respect. Hands in my head, got respect. Hands in my head and I take them to my one-man. Cause not I got respect. Hands in my head and I take them to my one-man. I want to take them to my one-man trip. Walk to my trip. I take them to my one-man trip. To my one-man trip. Walk, take them to my one. Take them to my one-man trip. Walk with hands in my head and I take them to my one-man trip. Walk with dollars at my rib. I got respect. in my head, and I take her to my one bed crib. Walk with dollars at my rib. In my head, and I take her to my one. I take her to, I take her.
And I said,
And I take her to my, and I take her to, and I take her to my one bed crib. I take her to my one, I take her, and I take her to my one bed crib. Walk with dollars at my rib. In my head, and I take her to my one bed crib. Walk with dollars at my rib. And I take my head, and I take her to my. And I take her to my one bed, and I take her to my one bed, and I take her to my one bed crib. In my head, and I take her to my one bed crib. Walk with dollars at my rib. And I take her to my one bed crib. Walk with dollars at my rib. Finally given the go, but we know it's good in our guns. You know what I mean? I looked at the sky, took a sign, and at the person which I go, and after it was moved, it seemed. I'm keep smoking. I got respect, cause not I got respect. In my head, and I take her to my one. I got respect. In my head, and I take her to my one bed crib. Respect. In my head, and I take her to my one bed crib. Walk with dollars at my rib. One bed crib. Walk with dollars at my. To my one bed crib. Walk with dollars at my rib. My rib. My rib. With dollars at my rib. At my rib. At my rib. Finally given the go, but we know it's worth it. Not bad, not bad, not bad. Not bad, not bad, again. You know what I mean? I looked at the sky, took a sign, and finally given the go, but we know it's good in our guns. You know what I mean? I looked at the sky in my head, and I said, isn't it discovery the exact point of music? Cause not I got respect, cause not I got respect. It's in my head, and I said, and I said, isn't it discovery the exact point of music? Cause not I got respect, cause not I got respect. It's in my head, and I said, to my one bed rib, Margaret Dollars at my rib. Finally given the go, but not bad news now. So not bad news, not bad news now. Not bad news, not bad news now. Don't keep up too tight. Finally given the go, but we know it's good in our guns. Finally given the go, but we know it's finally given the go, but we know it's good in our guns. Tight. Finally given the go, but we know it's good in our guns. You know what I mean? Don't keep up too tight. Finally given the go, but we know it's good in our guns. You know what I mean? I looked at the sky, took a sign, and that person shall go, and after it was made, it seemed. Don't keep up too tight. Not bad news now. Don't keep up too tight. Finally given the go, but we know it's good in our guns. You know what I mean? I looked at the sky, took a sign, and finally given the go, but we know it's good in our guns. You know what I finally given the go, but we know it's good in our guns. You know what I mean? I finally given the go, but we know it's good in our guns. You know what I mean? I go, but we know it's good. In the go, but we know it's good in our guns. You know what I mean? In the go, but we know it's good in our. In the go, but we know. In the go, but we know it's good in our guns. You know what I mean? In the go, but we know it's good in our guns. Tight. Finally given the go, but we know it's good in our guns. You know what I mean? I looked at the sky, took a sign, and finally given the go, but we know it's good in our guns. You know what I mean? I looked at the sky. In our guns, you know what I mean? I looked at the sky, took a sign, and guns, you know what I mean? I looked at the sky, took a sign, and guns, you know what I mean? I looked at the sky, took guns, you know I looked at the sky, took looked at the sky, took a sign, and know what I mean? I looked at the sky, took know what I mean? I looked at the sky, took a sign, and finally given the go, but we know it's good in our guns. You know what I mean? I looked at the sky, took a sign, and our guns. You know what I mean? I looked at the sky, took a sign, and guns. You know what I mean? I looked at the sky, took a sign, and walk in. That person, shall I go? And after it was made, it seemed. Hips walk in.
Shitzooi dinsdagmiddag op de TU Delft door een gesponnen riool. Daardoor ontstond er een waterval van poep op de universiteit. Op beelden is te zien dat bruin water uit het plafond naar beneden stroomt. Een aantal studenten stonden vlakbij het lek. Ik heb het zelf zoiets voor gezien. Dezelfde dag is alles nog opgeruimd en de woordvoerder daar heeft even geroken. De stanklucht is inmiddels weg.
On dating apps for so many years that I just started inventing my own ideas for dating apps. And I did think of one pretty good idea. Would you guys like to hear it? So you guys know most dating apps, if you like someone, you swipe right. If they like you, they swipe right, and then you match, right? On my dating app, if you reject someone, you swipe left, and they swipe left, and they reject you too, then you also match with that person. Isn't that more interesting? Two people both reject each other. That's two people both think they're better than the other person. Like, I think that would lead to more first dates because you're gonna want to meet that person in real life. You know, like people are gonna show up on the first date and be like, okay, so what the fuck is wrong with me? You know? Was it my photos? Was it my bio? What was it? I also noticed on a lot of dating apps, if you really like someone, you can super like them. On my dating app, you can super reject someone, and
keep. Oh, God. Keep squash in the Oh, God. Stuff is made it seem. Oh, God. Keep squash in No, you're lucky to be seen. How are you gonna eat all of that if you haven't eaten your meat? 2 plus 2 is 5. Gave a wank guy. Stick hands in my head and I stick it to my one bed crib. Margaret Islands at my rib. I bet you now don't keep up too tight. Finally given the go, but we're going good at our guns. You know what I mean? I lift to the sky. Going good at our guns. You know what I mean? I lift to the sky, look aside and keep squash in keep keep squash. Keep squash in No, you're lucky to be seen. How are you gonna eat all of that if you haven't eaten your meat? Person, which I go. skorpion. I'm Pip Scorpion. No. No. You're lucky to be seen. How are you gonna eat all of that if you haven't eaten your meat? 2 plus 2. I'm Pip Scorpion. No. You're lucky to be I'm Pip Scorpion. No. No. You're lucky to be seen. How are you gonna eat all of that if you haven't eaten your meat? 2 plus 2 is 5. Scorpion. No. 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 If you haven't eaten